So today I thought I'd talk about some of the cross-pollinations that I'm making with Stonefruit. In a later video I'm definitely going to be talking about what I want to do with my apples, but at least for now I only have 2 apples that are actually in bloom. Both are low chill. We've got Golden Dorset and Tropical Anna. I'll be using a lot of their pollen, which I've saved quite a bit of, but until all of the other apples here actually wake up, my crosses won't sort of be as planned. But I do have some interesting things in mind. So for now, I'm doing a lot of my Stonefruit breeding. Now, this here, which I've shown in a previous video, the Sunset Nectarine, it's got really, really interesting genes, as I've said in a previous video. It's a brachytic dwarf. That means that it's very, very, very tightly spaced bud nodes, which make this really, really tight flowering pattern. Some people consider them more ornamental, but you know, they taste all right. They've got these beautiful red, purple leaves. They wake up very early in the season. I think these are only like 300 chill units, which in this area is, you know, that's considered to be pretty good. They're very resistant to things like very, very high summer temperatures, very, very low winter temperatures. They're very good with droughting, sorry, and overall are extremely precocious. They almost always have children, progeny, that flower in the first year. Without fail, I think I've had maybe 2 that haven't flowered in their first year, including ones that were not carrying the brachytic gene. But I'll be using that as my major pollen partner. And let's go take a look at some of the Stonefruit I'm deciding to cross with. I had thought to cross with this, what's called an 8-1 plum, to try and get another low chill hybrid, a plum hybrid. Mostly this plum I haven't had a good chance to really test out. It seemed very sweet, what little I have had. Very, very sweet for a plum, almost no acid. It's super low chill. Its flowering period has been huge. This is the first to have flowered of anything, including the apples that are still sort of wrapping their flowering up. This flowered after maybe 100 chill hours and continues to flower now that I'm up to about 600, 700 chill hours. So very, very low chill. And very good, presumably very good pollen spread. Ignore the plane. The actual crosses I've decided to make this year start here. So we've got the Angel Peach. This is a flat peach, sometimes called Chinese peach. I think their original genetics do trace back to China. This is just a very interesting form. They're very good peaches. A lot of people consider these flat peaches to be very, very good. Sometimes they're called donut peaches, sometimes they're called satin peaches. I assume because of the ring. You've also got them called angel peaches, at least here in Australia, by this one particular breeder. So I'm hoping to get that brachytic gene with the red foliage crossed with the flat peach. Now, whether or not it'll be a peach or a nectarine, I'm sure that's been documented exactly how well the nectarine hairlessness gene transfers. I've read that it is supposed to be recessive, but you can only do so much in terms of, you know, rubbing your little bits of pollen on each of the flowers. So I've marked each one that I've pollinated myself with one of these little black zip ties. That saved me from having to try and individually mark each and every one and pull off the flowers that I'm not looking to actually cross. Mostly this will just be a very interesting thing to have. The more interesting overall in terms of my long-term plans is this Indian peach. This peach has not immunity, but strong resistance to peach leaf curl. Peach leaf curl obviously being, at least in my area, the predominant disease afflicting peaches and nectarines. So to be able to bring some of those genes over into these non-immune series would be fantastic. It does have a pronounced flavor. People talk about that flavor and either love it or hate it. Apparently it's particularly good in baked goods, but I'm told that it is a quite good and interesting peach all on its own. Either way, if I was able to bring some of that over, and ideally the brachytic gene, I'm very interested in keeping the very compact dwarfing, ultra dwarfing nature. If I could bring that all together, that'd be seriously fantastic. In the same kind of vein, I've got this almond here. This is just a self-pollinating almond, soft shell. It's nothing fancy. It's totally fine. It flowered last year and I was able to have a few of the almonds and they were fine. And this year looks to be a much better flowering year now that it's had a bit of time to establish. The same thing here. Almonds and peaches do carry a lot of genetics. Effectively, they are a specialized form of peach. They still have the fuzz on the outside, and it's just that instead of eating the flesh, which is typically subpar, you're eating the seed, which is typically delicious. So this one seems like it should be an easy first step towards an interesting hybrid, because its genetics are still very close, and you know, almonds typically don't suffer from like leaf curl and things like that. They're a little more removed, and so typically don't suffer from it. They're a little more hardy. They've often used as rootstock because they are so hardy. But really, what I'm trying to do is bring that brachytic gene back into an almond. I've looked around. I'm sure that there must be brachytic almonds around, given that they share so much common genealogy with peaches. There must be a brachytic almond. I haven't been able to find anywhere listing them, and going through research papers, I haven't been able to find anybody documenting having developed one either. So I'd be really interested to get that through. Again, I really love using that sunset nectarine. It's got a good behavior. It's very precocious. It produces tons of pollen. It seems to be high quality, highly viable pollen, but it also makes it really easy to see when the genes have in fact been passed on, because the leaves are just so red. When they're young, there can be, in a lot of the crosses I've made with just other peaches, they can be blood red. It's really quite beautiful. So I'm hoping that I can get something interesting here. I'd love to bring that brachytic gene across. Again, because I've looked and I couldn't find anything, I don't know how transferable outside of the peach and nectarine families those brachytic genes are, because it's not a dwarfing gene like, say, an M27 apple rootstock, which is just a small tree and does not grow tall. It's actually a special mutation that fills a lot of the height genes with junk information, causing it to just effectively fail at height. It still grows forwards, meaning that every year you do get, you know, more buds and more nodes and more flowers and more growth, but it's not attempting to get taller. It just happens to be moving forward with the next year's little bit of growth. So I'm not sure how transferable it really is, but I'd love to be able to bring it back over, get it out of the peaches, and actually develop something in the almonds that is very ultra compact. because almond fruit is typically quite small. I mean, I'm sort of giving, an Australian 50-cent piece size, but it's often even smaller than that. They can be nearly only a little bigger than crab apples if they're from particular varieties. So, having tons and tons and tons of the fruit in a very small spot would make for just a fantastic backyard almond. Now, whether or not that's useful for industry is not my interest. What I'm trying to develop are interesting things for people's backyards, which is why I've got such a heavy focus on using that brachytic Sunset Series Nectarine and bringing those traits back over. On that note, goes to one of my more ambitious crosses, which is this Royal Crimson Cherry. Now, I haven't found too much information about peach/nectarine cross with cherry. Cherry has had hybridization with other stone fruit before. You can get chums, which are cherry plums. I believe that you can get several varieties within that sort of family. I believe you can get them crossed with apricots, which I've got a very interesting hybrid apricot over here that I'd love to attempt to bring those genes across. It's already got plum genes, which theoretically should make it more likely to hybridize, to have a higher chance to hybridize. Plums seem to be much more compatible with each of the stone fruit varieties than, say, especially cherry. Cherry is known to be quite unaccepting. So I've got that same Sunset Series here. Whether or not they take, not really sure. I'd love to bring that brachytic and low chill. That's another thing that I didn't mention before. The fact that it is so low chill is super important. With the climate just getting hotter and hotter, it is so important to have, at least in our area, low chill, high quality fruit. So if I can bring, this is already a low chill variety, that this is, as I said, it's Royal Crimson. So if I'm able to continue forward with those low chill genes and also bring in the brachytic genes and really bring this down, really make it compact. Like, this is about as tall as many of these brachytic dwarf peaches and nectarines even really get. So to be able to make it ultra fruitful, I mean, cherries are much smaller. They typically are on elongated stems as opposed to tightly bunched up close to the stem, which actually means that the brachytic form is uniquely unsuited for peaches and nectarines, because they don't typically have very small stems and are wedged right up against the actual branch. So if I can bring some of that over, that'd be fantastic. A cherry peach, even if it doesn't carry the best qualities of either, if I can bring that brachytic gene over, I can then back cross either the same variety again, or say the variety that's sitting behind it, the Minnie Royal, which is another very low chill and reasonably compact, but not dwarf per se, cherry tree. That'd be fantastic. If I can just keep that brachytic, but then just bring it back towards the cherry side, chef's kiss. So that brings me on to this little guy. Now, it's flowered up okay this year. This is only its first year actually planted, so I really shouldn't let it have too much fruit. I have some here that I've left just to see. It is supposed to be somewhat self-fertile. I've left these unpollinated so that I can actually tell how self-fertile they are. Next to them, with the little, again, black zip ties, that indicates that I've gone back across these and put on that Sunset Nectarine. And to really try and make sure that I don't get that self-fertile nature accidentally causing the fruit to set, I've gone through and I've pulled off all of the pollen or the anthers from anything that I myself have been crossing onto. So that means that really it'd be unlikely for them to have just been self-fertile and not have been brought across in the pollen from the sunset nectarine. So hopefully one of these two, I get something in the first year. I'm not expecting it. This is a hard cross to make. It is well documented that it is much further removed from the rest of the Stonefruit family. It's famously very hard to put sweet cherry grafts onto anything other than very select series of plums and then sweet cherry rootstocks. They just are very, very particular and not as closely related to the rest of the family as, you know, plums, which are kind of the stone fruit. Everything seems to have come from plums, at least from what I can find and read, and so that makes it very compatible with other things. And then, you know, peaches and nectarines, which have unusually high self-fertility, which typically means that they are more accepting for crosses. I've found that peaches and nectarines are reasonably good at accepting, you know, plums being grafted on, or like this is a hybrid plum apricot. This theoretically should graft on okay. I haven't actually tried this particular one. Instead, I've tried just a straight apricot. Apricots are, again, kind of sitting aside. They've been disconnected from the rest of the family long enough. This is a Bebco apricot, and it's grafted up really, really nicely. Like, you know, I had a little bit of a bark inclusion here, so that's on me, but it's healed up extraordinarily well, as you can see. As I've said in a previous video, this is all the sunset. On top, we then go to, I think it's a Fantasia nectarine, which sort of builds out to some of the scaffold. Then we've got where I've grafted on a white opal peach here, and then bud grafted here. I've also got, this is another brachytic dwarf, but this one's a peach instead of a nectarine. This little guy over here, a Trixie peach. It doesn't have the red leaves, which I really do like the red leaves, but I'm still going to be using this guy for a few experiments. I'm not quite sure what yet. Probably I'll put the Indian peach across it. I think that should work out pretty nicely. They both have kind of interesting flavor profiles. The Trixie is maybe too sweet, and the Indian peach is considered to be almost more savory, and so balancing that back across might actually be really interesting. And you know, I've grafted on, here's the angel, here's the Indian peach, just so that I've got multiple places for each of these. So yeah, like I said, this guy, it's not as interesting to me. It's not as low chill. As you can see, it's only just now starting to wake up, and that's at the sort of 600, 700, 800 chill mark, versus the, you know, considerably lower chill, which is the Sunset series. Even its offspring over here, again, both flowered pretty early. You know, they've been fully woken up and leafed out now for at least a month and a half, maybe 2 months. Yeah, so I'm much more interested in bringing that really low chill, ultra high precocity across. So I'm just going to quickly visit my freestanding peach tree. It's a Nemagard rootstock with white opal peach as the major scaffold, on which I've grafted this little guy. Now this is a white opal crossed with, again, that sunset nectarine. It didn't carry the brachytic gene, but I'm interested to see if it's peach or a nectarine. And in either case, I was definitely looking to kind of re-scaffold the nectarine, and so was just going to use this as part of the scaffolding. It grows very, very quickly. Most peaches do, honestly, but this seems to be growing very quickly in general. On the same tree, I've got Spice Z, which is a nectar plum. It seems to be grafting up nice. It's only been on there maybe 3 weeks, but it seems to be taking. I've also got another nectar plum. This one is Sugar and Spice. Same thing, like it seems to be taking very, very well. These are both nectarine cross plum cross nectarine, so F2 nectar plums. They appear to have basically a peach slash nectarine growth habit. Their buds look effectively back to being like a nectarine's, but overall, I'm interested to try and use these as possible bridging agents. I haven't planned out exactly what I want to do with them. I haven't tasted them yet. Obviously, this is their first year on the tree. Hopefully by the end of the season, they will have grown significantly longer. But I'm interested to see if I start having trouble bringing any of the other peach or nectarine varieties into, say, the cherry or the apricot or the almond. I'll see if I can use something like these as a bridging parent. First year cross them here and then attempt to bring the brachytic gene across on top of that. I've also got, this is the Little Chum. This is a peach plum, and that seemed to graft up beautifully. There's basically no mismatch in the growth habit of the graft, which is fantastic. I've also got a Fireball apricot, which has grown fantastically here. As you can see, it's already leafed out, and the graft is already starting to push away and actually outsize my my grafting tape there, which means that it's really, really vigorously trying to grow. Same kind of thing happening here. This is just a generic white peach. Nothing too special about this one. It's just a commercial variety that I was going to use for rootstock, but thought, well, I may as well keep one little piece of it to see if it tastes any good. So, kind of a lot going on this tree, mostly just so I can test things out. You can see I've actually tried to graft the angel peach and just on the other side, the Indian peach. Neither seem to take, but the heavy pruning that this branch area got because of that has really started to plump up this area. I'll decide whether or not I cut this back much further based on how this fills the space. But yeah, so this hybrid, I'm thinking I'll call Fire Opal because it's the Sunset series. It's got this beautiful red foliage crossed with the white opal. So I thought that would be a bit cute. So the last thing to show as part of my this year's breeding, with the Stonefruit at least, is my Fireball apricot. Same thing again. I'm looking to bring the brachytic genes and the low chill genes over to my Fireball apricot. Again, anywhere that's got one of these zip ties has been hand pollinated. I don't think I've actually ever seen a Nectarcot. I'm sure they must exist. I haven't done too much research into it. But around here, I certainly haven't seen them for sale. And having a quick look online, I couldn't find any vendors that were selling them. But the Fireball apricot is just like an intense apricot. It doesn't have anything that is super unique other than it tastes like just the most apricot-y apricot. Very low fiber, making it very sort of melting flesh. Very, very sweet. Many say too sweet, but in my opinion, it's one of the better semi-modern apricots. So I think that's pretty much the entire Stonefruit breeding as it stands right now. Over here is the little chum, that's the cherry plum. When this actually breaks dormancy, because it's a cherry crossed with a plum, it does mean that it has a fairly high chill factor. It's just now starting to push some lower leaves, so it should start to, here we go as well, it should start to flower maybe another month. And the exact same thing again. I'll come back across, I'll pick which flowers in which spots I like, and I'll be using that sunset nectarine pollen across them all, and hopefully that should bring me something. And yeah, I'd love to be able, if I was able to get that crossed with the peach, I feel like that would be maybe the best starting point if I don't have any success with the cherries directly, to be able to then try and create, F2, F3 crosses that had the cherry in its ancestor, to bring that back across. Because the name of the game really is to try and get these ultra dwarfing, super dwarfing, brachytic genes back into other stone fruit. Okay, well, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.